Hi, Tom from bknutrition.com, and today I want to talk about a quick technique you can use whenever you get a snacking craving. So this is one of many techniques that I teach my clients. Each has their own application. Not all of them will work in all situations, but over time, as you've used all of them, you will start to recognize which ones you can apply to which situation and gradually build up your control of your snacking urges and start to work with your brain instead to allocate times where you're going to have snacks and treats and stuff and not be forced into it by your brain. So the technique I'm going to talk about today is called the 100-pound donut. Now that's not a 100-pound donut as in a weighted 100-pound donut. That is a donut that costs £100. Now when you think about that, that's got to be some special type of donut, isn't it? I mean, I like Krispy Kremes, but I don't think I would spend £100 on one donut. However, what if I'd had a very stressful day? And what if I'd had, and I hadn't had any food that day and I was very hungry and I was walking past a Krispy Kremes and that was the only place around for miles that I could possibly get any food to eat for that moment. I had £100 in my pocket and the only thing they sell was a £100 donut. Then you quite possibly might buy a donut for £100 just because you needed to eat something at that point. You were hungry, you were tired, you were stressed, and spending £100 on a donut at that point becomes quite acceptable. Now, we've got to apply this to normal everyday life because we don't think about the consequences of our actions of eating when we're doing them normally. We have in our mind, and I talk about this in my book, 3 brains. There's 3 brains. The first one is the Muncher brain, which is the instinctual brain. The second one is what I call TVOR, the inner voice of reason, and that's your logical brain. And then you have the robot, which is your pre-programmed subconscious. So the robot does stuff like opening doors, when you brush your teeth, when you get in a car to drive. You don't think about the actions, you just do it because you've done them so many times. So the ones that are normally active, normally recognize, are the Muncher and the logical brain, the TVOR brain. Now most of the day we're in the logical brain and we're walking around doing things logically and making logical decisions. When we get emotional, when we get tired, when we get hungry, that is the time when your Muncher brain comes out and starts to say to us, why don't we have some donuts? Why don't we have some cookies? And the reason it does that is because it knows that having that food will give you a sense of satisfaction, a sense of joy because of the dopamine hit which you get from eating those foods. Now we get a dopamine hit when we're eating the food afterwards, but we also get a dopamine hit before, and that is the drive, the trigger to go and get those foods. And so sometimes that dopamine drive can be so big that it's very, very hard to resist it, and that is the time that you normally break on your diet, when you've got such an anticipation of how nice that food will be, and it overrides your logical brain. You can't fight it, and you go and have that food, and then afterwards, when your Muncher brain has gone back to sleep and the dopamine hit has subsided and it's nothing there anymore, and you're left there thinking, why did I eat that? I didn't want to, I still ate it. That's the reason why. That's the way it happens. Now, we can use a lot of different techniques, and I talk about these in my book and also in my videos as well, to control it. And the 100-pound donut is a logical, almost like a block, a barrier that you can put up if your desire, your craving is not astronomical. And what it does, it's just this defense mechanism put up by the logical brain. If you're thinking about, right, I want a donut. Okay, would you spend £100 on that donut? Now what it does, it forces you to just stop for a second and think about the value that you're going to place on having that food, that donut, that cookie, that ice cream, whatever else. Now if at that point you would spend £100 to have that donut, what I would probably suggest is it's probably a good idea just to go and have it, because if you try and resist for much longer, what's going to happen is it's going to turn into a massive binge. So sometimes when I advise my clients, so look, if it's a case of it is such an overwhelming thing that you have to eat something, I would probably do it just to eat it so that you can then go, right, I've done that, but then make a logical decision that you're going to eat it and then control yourself afterwards, rather than just going all in. Because if you try and resist for much longer, it will build up and it will build up, and then what will happen is you'll probably end up binging on a load of things. And this enhancement of dopamine, this response you get to try and eat this food, is enhanced the longer the cue stays with you. So if the stress is consistently building up, so if you're having like an argument with someone and it goes on and on and on, if you're constantly looking at a plate of donuts when you're hungry, that is going to be building up in your mind. If you're having a long day at work and you haven't eaten and the day gets even worse, that is the time when you're going to get those cravings to eat those foods, because the cue has not been removed. You can do something and just walk away and remove the cue. So if you took the donuts away from your field of vision, you would probably stop thinking about that after about 10 minutes. If you are having a stressful day and you say, right, I'm going out, I'm going for a walk, you walk off to de-stress, walk out and then have a think about how you're going to handle that when you come back. Those are the sorts of things you can do to remove yourself from the situation. If those things aren't there and you potentially can't take away the cues and it's just going to get worse and worse, what I normally say to clients is, well, that's the time when you would spend £100 on a donut, because it will solve the immediate issue of you're stressed and you're hungry and you're tired and you want something to eat, and you can get on with things afterwards. Most of the time though, we can think about things. We can think, would I pay £100 for that donut? Most of the time it's no. Most of the time it's, well, actually, no, I wouldn't pay £100. I'd much rather spend £100 on, I don't know, Nando's or something else. You know, you can get a lot more for your money that way. And if you can have that quick conversation with yourself, it's almost like a barrier you put up to prevent or to almost slow down the Muncher brain taking over and controlling your will. Now, it's not going to, like I said, it's not going to stop it if you are so stressed and so hungry and you absolutely do want to eat something like that. It's not going to stop that. It's just going to railroad through it, no problem. However, if it is only just a small craving, just a small thinking about things, it does stop it in its tracks just for a second so you can think about it and remove yourself from the situation. Remember, if you're just sat there looking at a plate of donuts thinking, do I want to spend £100 for that donut? The cue's still going to be there and you're still going to want to eat that donut. If you can stop yourself thinking, no, I wouldn't spend £100, and then you're off out the office or out the room or whatever, to remove yourself from the situation, you can establish more of a logical control over yourself and then come back and be more prepared for that. But still, if the cue is going to be there when you come back, you've got to think about how you're going to handle that. So other techniques will come into that. So the £100 donut is a stop. It's a break technique. It gets your logical brain rethinking, and it's something you can implement straight away. Would I spend £100 for that? If it helps you, have £100 in your pocket and have it in your hand. Would I spend this money on that? If you wouldn't, then I suggest that you remove yourself from the situation and get a logical brain in control again, so that you can think about what you're going to do afterwards. So that's the £100 donut. I hope this was helpful. It's a quick technique you can use very, very easily. Like I said, it's not going to rectify all situations, but it will get you thinking logically straight away if you get a snacking craving. So I hope this was helpful. Please share, do all the normal stuff to help me get my message out and help me grow my channel. Appreciate your support, and I will see you on the next video. Thanks.